All right. So, welcome everybody to this episode of Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing. I'm not sure of the various different adjectives to describe this, but from my vantage point at least, puzzling is the most important way that we can put it in a very good way. So, I'm really delighted to share some time with Mangesh Ghogre. Mangesh, thank you so much for joining us.
My honor and my pleasure, and very on. I'm very delighted to be here with you, Abhay.
Awesome. Yeah. And I imagine that at least for this conversation, we're going to have hopefully not too much of difficulty in finding the right words. No pun intended, right? Um,
I pause to get the right word rather than jumping into the first one.
there you go.
Yeah.
Um, I was thinking a little bit about this, the work that you do, and the idea of trying to solve puzzles, create puzzles, and
Yeah.
find diversions for people for their pastimes and what they do with their mind and their time. Um, how did crosswords particularly pique your interest? And the reason I ask that is because is puzzle building and the patience required to build and master and solve problems, are they all kind of proxies for your own personality as well?
um, there, I think multiple questions in that. The first one, how did crossword pick my interest? It was slightly incidental. So when I was in my first year of engineering, way back in 1997 in VJTI, if you're familiar in Mumbai, uh, it was pretty much par for course for people to study the Barron's word list to prepare for
Mm,
either the GRE or the GMAT. And
yeah,
I was in hostel and I was surrounded by all these, top rankers, academically brilliant minds who wanted to improve their vocabulary. And at our hostel breakfast table, we used to wonder whether solving the Times of India crossword will help us improve our vocabulary.
yeah,
And that's where my journey started. That so we were like, and I come from Marathi background. I grew up in Panvel, on the outskirts of Mumbai. Though I went to an English medium school, but in those days, early 80s, even though you went to an English medium school, you won't actually converse in English. In
mm,
fact, you will converse in English if you want to make enemies, right?
right,
Nobody will talk to you.
yeah,
So we never actually spoke English, and our limited knowledge was or exposure was, if you remember, in early 90s, HBO and Star movies came to India.
yeah,
So we had 8 channels on our TV, and out of those 8, one was Star movies, and they played, I think, one movie a day, and there were no subtitles right then.
right,
So that was our sort of exposure to the English world. So we thought, this is a newspaper which comes to our home pretty much every day, almost free, doesn't cost much,
yeah,
and it helps you to test our vocabularies. So that's where crosswords became a medium to solve one problem, which was to improve our vocabulary.
mm,
An eventual game aim was to improve our GMAT score or GRE score or whatever.
right,
But I think it was the ecosystem of VJTI. I
yeah,
mean, we used to joke that if you dig in VJTI anywhere, you will find a Barron's word list. It
yeah,
was it was so prevalent.
yeah.
People used to carry it everywhere. So those
Well,
flashcards and all that.
yeah, and so I mean, definitely a vehicle for academic success, and of course, taking an exam. And yet, did was there something in you inherently that
Uh,
was, kind of there were
Correct.
already the ingredients of puzzle solving, and again, the patience that's required not only to solve but eventually now create.
I think again, if I think about it, the reason why it piqued my interest in crosswords um, were two things. One was that I had studied Sanskrit in my grade 8 to grade 10.
Mm,
Um, Sanskrit is a very cryptic or a very coded language, as pretty much any language is. But the way my teacher taught me was beautiful.
mm,
And I still remember those subhashitas, which were very cryptic. In 2 lines, they will give you such a beautiful summary.
sure.
So that was one reason, was to see a language where a lot is hidden.
Right.
and you have to discover.
Hmm.
So some kind of a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
And the second reason was symmetry or a rhythm. So in crosswords, if you see in any American crossword grid, it is symmetric. So
Yeah.
if you turn the grid upside down or left to right, it looks exactly the same. So it's
Of course.
symmetric. And
Yeah.
so is Sanskrit language. It's very, very rhythmic.
Yeah.
So for example, if you study Sanskrit, if you look at the tables which go into grammar, Devo Deva Deva, Devo Devabhyam Devanti. It's a table of 8 by 8. It's a very, very rhythmic, and it's a proper mathematical logic to it.
Yeah.
So those two things, that there is a language which you can discover, and second, that there is a rhythm, there is a symmetry, piqued my interest.
And
Because if you
yeah.
master the rhythm, you master the language.
Yeah. I'm imagining that because, and first off, I didn't actually expect that Sanskrit and crosswords would somehow intertwine here like this, but that's beautiful and it's very elegant. And I imagine that, in fact, there certainly is clearly a science and a
Yes.
logic and a mathematical calculus
Yeah.
to this, and as well as being a style and an art
Yeah.
to solving and even constructing a crossword puzzle. Um, are those two blends of the science and the rhythm, let's say, of Sanskrit, and even the design of a
Hmm.
crossword puzzle, as well as the art and the style, while they might serve as your signatures when you're designing and constructing a puzzle, you also have to keep an empathetic eye on your puzzle solver.
Yes.
So as a puzzle constructor, if you think about the art, the science, the math, the logic,
Yeah.
and now your puzzle solver, how have you been able to achieve that balance, particularly when it comes to creating puzzles?
So again, it was a natural progression, given that before becoming a constructor, I was a solver for almost like 12, 15 years.
Yeah,
So I had been in those shoes pretty for a pretty long time.
right.
So I knew how that side works. So when I came on the other side, it was very easy for me to imagine what should happen so that the aha moment appears.
Mm,
I, as a constructor, I joke with myself that if I make a beautiful puzzle, but if my crossword solver is not able to solve it,
yeah.
it's a failure.
Mm,
To put the other way around, very subtly, when my solver wins, or let me rephrase it, I'll be more than happy to lose if my solver wins. The solver has to
right.
win. If I win, that means the puzzle is not solved. I don't see it as a victory.
Hmm.
So I have to lose. I have to be on the loser side. The puzzle has to be solved.
Yeah.
So then the pressure is on me to be a loser. I don't know if you
By
can
the way, which
relate.
is a very, very different construct in investment banking, I would say.
Oh God, you hit the nail. Yeah, investment banking is polar opposite. You are like a dog eat dog world multiplied by 100, where
Correct.
I will kill you, but I'll make sure I win.
Well, and I mean, this notion that the solver really has to win. And of course, in a way, you're serving as a guide, as a
Yes,
docent,
yes,
as a in a way, even someone who's really helping someone navigate through a puzzle
yeah,
by giving them clues, by giving them different hints. And yet,
yeah,
you also know, as a puzzle master, that there are varying degrees of skill in being able to do this. So as someone who has been a puzzle solver for a good majority of your life, and now also have been a master puzzle constructor, um, how do you get unstuck when you're actually either solving or constructing a puzzle? Have you found any secrets to mastering that part of, how do you get beyond sort of these common hurdles that everyone goes through sometimes in a crossword puzzle?
Yeah, so while solving, there's a very beautiful experience I have had, and I have lived it many, many times, and I want to relate that.
Yeah.
Is that when you solve a puzzle, let's say you solve it, 50, 60, 70, 40%, whatever, midway, and you are stuck. Try this next time. Leave that puzzle and just digress somewhere else. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like you leave that puzzle cooking in your brain. Okay. Then you come back after a few hours or some time, and you will see that somehow the answer pops out.
Mm,
I have lived that so many times, and I am amazed then how the mind works.
right.
So that's one. I will not say trick, but that's an experience. It may not
Yeah.
happen to everyone every time on the first go,
Right.
but in our regular parlance, we say sleep over it,
Yeah.
right? It's
Right.
something similar. So as those tricks are as a solver, then obviously I was very, very disciplined as a solver, very, very disciplined.
Mm,
So if I solve a puzzle today, and if I don't know the answer, the solution comes the next day, I will go through every clue which I got, which I did not get, and I'll make notes.
interesting.
I was
Yeah.
like mad about it, mad. I
Right.
still have those notes and those diaries. So discipline is critical in mastering crosswords. So you
So
can't,
it needs to
because you
be
can't.
iterative.
Sorry.
You need to learn from each puzzle.
Yeah, you need to learn from each puzzle, and you need to
Yeah.
make sure you retain that learning. Because
Yeah.
I'll tell you a clue today, you will read the answer, and you will feel that you got it. But if I'll ask the same clue after 6 months, you may not remember it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But if you write it, and if you write it every time it comes, the 10th, 11th time, you will get it.
Yeah.
So, so it's, as you can see, it's a lot of hard work, a lot of discipline. As a constructor, if I get stuck, um, I have a lot more flexibility,
Mm,
because if suppose I'm making a puzzle, it doesn't work, I can scrap it without anybody coming to know about it.
right. Right.
So you don't know that the puzzle which is coming to you is my first draft or the 100th draft or the 50th draft, right?
Yeah.
So life is a lot more easier there.
Yeah.
But again, one or two lessons. One is that you cannot fall in love with the idea. So let's say for example, I made a New York Times crossword to celebrate Indian Independence Day
Mm,
last year, and the theme was Taj Mahal. So I actually made the shape of the Taj Mahal in the puzzle.
yeah.
Now, while making that puzzle, I wanted some more nuances of the Taj Mahal to be in the grid. Now I tried it, but it was not working out. So then I had to kill it.
Mm,
So that, I think, is very difficult as a constructor, because you feel that you are making a literal Taj Mahal, which is the wonder of the
right.
world, and to get rid of it is, if you can master that, you actually grow faster. But it's
Yeah.
very tough, because you are in love with that idea. You think this is you know the thing to happen, and nobody has tried this before.
Right.
But I think master constructors master that they can kill the idea,
Mm.
because
So no
the
one is really
resource is
seduced by
unlimited.
any one thing.
Yeah, because the resource is unlimited, of ideas is unlimited.
Yeah.
There's no limit. But if you think that this is the best idea, then it becomes that much more difficult to leave it,
Yeah.
because the next
Well,
best idea is just waiting for you.
that's right. That's right. Well, and again, you said that like nobody who's solving the puzzle that you've created really knows whether this was your first draft, your
Yes.
100th
Yeah.
draft, or the idea that actually came after 6 tries, that
Yes.
kind of thing.
Correct. Correct. In fact,
Um,
an average New York Times puzzle for me will take like 6 months to make, at least. People
yeah.
will solve it in less than a minute,
Right.
and
Right.
people will be like, it was crap.
Yeah.
I took 6 months, but they don't care.
Yeah. And in that way, the crossword puzzles are again something of an art even to solve, and it's a passion, it's a hobby. But for those who are perhaps beginners, right? What would you say are, and you mentioned this already, which is,
Yeah,
you sleep on it, you let things marinate and ruminate a little bit. But what strategies and methods should beginners use to get to know crossword
sure.
as a puzzle, and become more advanced? At least get beyond that sort of
Yeah.
initial stage of, almost stage fright, right? That like you're like, oh gosh, this is daunting. I'm not sure if I can tackle this, but I'm
So I'll say
interested in
three
it. So
things.
how do you get over the hump, so to
Point
speak?
one is treat crosswords as a language, right? So just as you speak, when you start learning as a
Hmm,
kid, you don't start saying or speaking a sentence first. You start with the basics. Then you learn a word, then you learn the grammar, and then a sentence is formed. So similarly in crosswords, your first, let's say, couple of weeks will be only looking at the clues, looking at the answers. Don't even try to solve it. Just look at the clues, just look at the answers every day
right.
or whatever frequency you decide, and just start building that how this x is equal to y, x is equal to y, because every crossword is a reflection of somebody's mindset. Like my crosswords is a reflection of my mindset. The way I clue, the
Hmm,
way I tell you, the clue is different from how Abhay will clue it. So you need to get the hang of how the constructor thinks. So
right.
that's step one. Step two, as I mentioned, you need to be a lot more patient.
Yeah.
So the basic unit of frequency in crosswords is decades. It's not days, it's not weeks, it's decades.
Hmm,
Uh, because
wow.
that's how it is. And as I compared it
Yeah.
with a language, if you learn a language, you will not forget it before a decade. Even if you don't use it, you will not forget it, it stays. But it takes time to pick it up.
Right.
So don't expect that you will
Hmm,
become, master of it quickly.
yeah.
So need to have patience. And third
Right.
is, you know, uh, the way crosswords, at least my crosswords, test you is they keep you hungry for looking at multiple ways of looking at the same problem. So, for example, a word will have so many
Hmm,
different
yeah.
meanings that you need to be curious to know how many more meanings there are to this word. Like just yesterday, I was chatting in my community. We were discussing a word stuff. Okay. And I had the same word as the clue
Hmm,
for two different
yeah.
answers. So the clue was stuff, the answer was clog, four-letter word. And the clue was again stuff, and the answer was
Right.
sate, S-A-T-E, as an appetite. So we were just discussing. And the next day,
Yeah.
that means
Yep.
today, I had another clue, which was good stuff, which is well done. Now, the same word has so many different meanings, and I'm sure stuff has
Yeah.
at least 50 more meanings, which are waiting to be discovered. So that mindset will keep
Right.
you going.
Right.
And as a constructor, my job is
Yeah.
to show you those many
I love
colors.
that.
It's like, the example I give, when we were kids,
Yeah.
everybody had that one crayon box. It will have standard 12 colors, right? One red, one blue, one green.
Hmm,
But if I give you a same crayon box, which will have seven different shades of green, eight different shades of red, it opens up your mind.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love the idea of,
Yeah.
so many shades of a color and this rhythm and
Yes.
patience and that crosswords are a language. So all of those things, I think, cultivate a nice, I think, shape to hopefully crosswords being the kind of puzzle that someone can enjoy for decades, as you say.
No,
Speaking of language,
not
do you
really.
do crosswords
I
in
have
Marathi and
neither
Sanskrit
solved
as well?
them. Construction is a lot more difficult because then you need a software which handles Devanagari script. But as
Yeah,
of now, no, not really. Maybe
sure.
AI will help me to get there, and it will be brilliant to see that
Yeah,
confluence coming together. uh,
Yeah,
but it is possible.
right, right. Well, and I'll, yeah, on that same note, right? I mean, there's so many different shades to our identities and who we are.
Yeah.
You wrote the first, you know, you were the first Indian
Yep.
based crossword constructor for the LA Times and the New York Times. And you have a obviously, you know, some great work that's out there in multiple publications, and of course your book on mini crosswords. Um, that's actually, and by the way, I love that book that provides a soft sort of intro to Bollywood and cricket and some good nostalgia things as well. Why is being an Indian crossword constructor so important to you, and particularly therefore valuable
One simple
to,
fact:
you know, the kind of puzzle community?
India has the largest speaking English English speaking population on the planet. We are, I will not say
Right.
supposed to, but we are entitled to entertain ourselves in that language. And we don't have our own crossword. How?
Mm,
Why? Not
yeah,
acceptable.
very true.
95% of crosswords which get published in Indian newspapers today are imported from either US or UK, which have their own local flavor to it, rightfully
Mm,
so.
yeah.
But why is like the reason I became a constructor is because I grew up solving an American crossword sitting in Mumbai with no internet and no Bollywood, no Star Movies or HBO. I did not know what's a coyote. I did not know what's a turnpike, and I did not know what's a BLT. But I was made to solve it, and even today
Right.
it is done.
Yeah.
So that's why I said, okay, as Mahatma Gandhi said, you know, you need to solve the problem, be the change you want to see. So I want to see this change. So I'm trying to make my own Indian mini
Mm.
crossword so that people who are who love the language can explore a crossword which will give them their own flavor.
Well, that's first off fantastic, because there is a great pride in what you do, and it comes across in your work. And I'm so grateful that there are many who are
Absolutely.
out there who are getting
I
to
have a very
enjoy this
vibrant
and
community
really
on
discover
WhatsApp as
and
well as on my
renew
website.
their passion
There
for
are people from
crosswords
10, 12 countries who
with
solve
you
my
every day.
minis every
So,
day, and these are all Indian minis.
among,
So I'm glad that
yeah,
that problem is getting solved.
of course, and again, hopefully, it means more and more
Thanks a lot, Abhay,
fans
for having me,
and puzzle
and
solvers are
looking
appreciating your work
forward
all the time.
to having some
Mangesh,
of
what a
your
treat to have a
audience
brief
to my
conversation
minis.
with you, and we wish you all the best.